The Veldt is set place in a happy life home occupied by the Hadley family. The home's most important feature is its nursery, which acts as a virtual reality world for the Hadley children, Wendy and Peter. This room has the ability to display whatever the person using it wants. At the beginning of the story, the parents go into the nursery and encounter an African Veldt. The walls display the harsh environment, with burning hot weather and killer lions running around. The parents, George and Lydia, are shocked at how real it seems. Eventually, the lions start charging towards them, and they quickly run out of the nursery. George is laughing and Lydia is crying. They are both surprised by the other's reaction. George reminds Lydia that it is all artificial, but Lydia is too scared by the encounter she had due to how real it seemed. Lydia insists that George locks the nursery for a few days.
George begins to attempt to shut off the nursery while the kids are not home. However, the nursery is not responding, and the African Veldt with the lions still remain. Wendy and Peter come home, and George confronts them about the nursery. The kids deny using Africa in the nursery. George makes Wendy go check the nursery, and when she checks, it shows a lovely green forest and purple mountains. George sends the children to the room. He decides to have David McLean, a psychologist, come check the nursery the next day. Peter comes to confront George about turning off the nursery. George begins to tell Peter that he plans to turn off the entire house for a month.
The next morning, George Hadley calls in David McLean to check on the nursery. David tells George he has a very bad feeling about this nursery and suggests that George tears down the entire nursery. He also tells George to send his kids to him for a treatment for the next year. He continues on by saying the nursery has become destructive and has taken the role of the children's parents. In the end, George and David come to the conclusion to get rid of the nursery. The children became hysterical when George told them he would shut off the nursery. Lydia tried to convince George to turn the nursery back on. However, George would not listen. Instead, he went around the house, turning off every piece of machinery he could. The children kept complaining until George finally turned the nursery on for one final minute. He let the kids play in the nursery for the final time while he began to pack up the house. While he was packing, he heard the children calling for him and Lydia downstairs. The two of them went downstairs, but the kids were nowhere to be seen. They ran into the nursery, and then the door slammed shut behind them.
George and Lydia tried to plead with the kids to open the door, but it did not work. They looked around and saw a Veltland with lions surrounding them. George and Lydia's final actions were screaming. David McLean showed up and saw the children sitting there. He asked the children where their parents were, and they said their parents would be there shortly. Little did David know, George and Lydia would never be seen again.